Chris, welcome. How are you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing good, and you?
Good, thanks. Good. Happy Friday. How's
Thank you. Yes, indeed, you too.
how's Black Friday treating you, keeping you up?
A lot better now. I mean, years ago, I used to sort of manage accounts that had like Google Shopping, and you could pretty much guarantee the feed would break on the Thursday or the Wednesday. So the years where I used to stay up at midnight to help see that side through. But now I'm pure SEO now. So if there's an issue on Black Friday, that issue probably happened weeks or months ago, or
Right.
it's a developer issue. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, not too bad from that point of view. Not too bad.
It's good to hear. Good to hear. So it's your first time on, and as I like to do with every SEO, I like to ask them how they got into the industry. So with that said, how did you become an SEO professional?
How did I? Oh, that's an interesting one. Well, I found it interesting. I mean, I guess everyone's stories is zigzagging, I guess, but I mean, broadly, I found a way of convincing someone that the thing that I'd done for years was something they should pay me for. So, sort of messing around on the internet, like writing content, um, building websites. On a massive caveat: I'm not a developer. I mean, like playing around with websites, but I found someone who knew less about it than I did, and managed to talk about it with enough confidence that they said, "Okay, we'll employ you." And at the time, that was Google Analytics, Google Ads, basically anything digital. I think part of my interview, I had to write like 400 words about a stapler to show that I could write content out of nothing, and then yeah, the rest, I guess, is history. Got picked up by an agency not too long after that, and then kind of went from there. Like my degree and my training, I guess, was in film and literature, and so absolutely nothing to do with what I'm doing. But I found quite quickly, speaking to people in the industry, I don't think I know anyone that has a relevant qualification to what it is.
It's
Lots
always the
of
way,
people that
isn't
kind of
it?
fell into it.
Yeah, yeah, I find that as well. It's
Yeah,
always the way.
just got
Somehow,
out of hand.
somehow this industry found us, or we found the industry, one of the other. But yeah, I find it's the way with a lot of SEO, especially those who've been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah, I think it's a bit more. It is a bit more structured now because it can be. I
Yeah.
think there's the money in it, and the recognition of the money in it is making people think, well, actually, maybe we should formally train people, and maybe we should actually check what these people can do.
Yeah,
There's add a little more rigor and structure to the process.
yeah, there are degrees for it now as well. So it's becoming more popular
Oh,
as a
I
degree.
find that slightly scary, actually. A degree. I mean, I've kind of made and delivered training on it, but something is kind of big and slow as a degree. Just I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe it should
yeah.
work.
I always find experience a lot more valuable, especially in this field, because a degree, as you said, it's slow, and with the industry, the way it moves, it's you can have a degree. If you had a degree 2 years ago, it's kind of outdated, unless you've kept up with the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's all of the like the hands-on practical stuff will be there. So a lot of the core principles of SEO are probably the same near enough as the ones that I learned 10, 12, 13 years ago, whatever. But it's the implementational part, like how do I implement it? Where do I implement it? All of that stuff just moves so super quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
So it is. It's a weird one. Although I remember interviewing someone years and years ago, and he said, "Oh, I don't have a formal degree like or formal SEO qualification like everyone else." And this was when formal qualifications didn't exist, so it was kind of like people have been playing the underdog sort of card for SEO for a long time now. We have less excuse for that now.
Would you say you're more of a technical person on page, off page, or all rounder, or data led?
Oh, I don't know. You'll get me into sort of an existential crisis, really. I guess so. My route into it was kind of content based. Although my first agency job, I was actually interviewing for an outreach position, and then they put me into a technical team. So I guess I've like got my foot in every area of it, but I think the technical is where I'm most comfortable.
Mm.
but I like to keep across all of them. I think probably the least experience I've got is off-page and link building. I know enough about it to know what good or great link building looks like, but I haven't done any serious hands-on link building for at least 5 years now. It's been a long time since I was on the phone to journalists and kind of pulling together big content pieces. So that's probably my weakest link. But I feel that the skills needed to do that really well have diverged so much from what it takes to become a really good technical SEO or a really good content SEO. They've kind of, I think the specialisms have developed more. I always used to characterize myself as an all-rounder. And I'm not a developer. I don't have a formal kind of web dev background or teaching. So even the agency that employed me to start with took a punt because they're like, well, you don't know how to build a website. How can you be a great technical SEO? And now that isn't a barrier to entry. As long as you know your way around HTML and you understand JavaScript and various bits like that, you can kind of make it up as you go along around the edges, I guess.
It's funny you mentioned link building, because 10 or so, or even 5+ years ago, SEO was seen as link building, right? That's pretty much what everyone considered SEO. And because of that, agencies, in my opinion, just pretty much service clients with link building, because that was the key. All up until Penguin, it was pretty much just link building is considered SEO. Nowadays, I think people kind of appreciate technical as the core, the fundamental of SEO. And you're right in that a lot of these pillars have become a lot more deep. And I think because of that, the specialty has allowed SEOs to almost branch outside of SEO. So someone who is a technical person can really delve into technical SEO, and they can pretty much be borderline developer. And someone who focuses on outreach, they pretty much can be a PR person these days. And I personally think outreach, specifically outreach, is better handled by PR rather than SEOs. What's your take on that?
I mean, I think what I've always said about PRs is they're the best at unlocking linking opportunities, but the worst at taking them. And that, I'm kind of painting in really broad strokes. I work with a lot of different PR agencies on various campaigns, but yeah, I mean, being outgoing, picking up the phone, knowing who to speak to, knowing what, just having that empathy or that understanding of, I know what this person wants, I know what it will take to get that link back. That is a definitive PR skill set, and one I'm envious of, because that's not my comfort zone by quite a long stretch. But I've delivered so much like SEO for PR training that's like, and put a link in, or, if you built this content, make the content live on your website, so it just increases the likelihood that it links back. And a lot of PRs get sort of slightly frustrated with that approach, because they're like, no, coverage is the key. The link is like, I don't worry about that. And I think in reality it's somewhere in the middle. Obviously I'm an SEO, so the link is crucial, and I might not have my eyes on the ball on the wider PR story. So it's I think it's definitely an underrated skill set. Although, I remember not too long after Penguin hit, and the kind of the old methods of scaling link building collapsed in style pretty much overnight. This whole content-led link building sort of approach that I guess Distilled and others sort of really championed suddenly became it. So, and for a very short period of time, 2 years or so, that was the only, that was what we had to do. The industry was kind of panicking. And then I think it sort of recentered back on tech, and obviously we started talking about log file analysis, and then after that Python started creeping in. And I think it's sort of the industry kind of reshifted and rearranged itself quite quickly, and grew as a result of it. I think fundamentally that kind of, that one way of doing SEO, it simply isn't true, because technical is really important for some websites, really not that important for others. If you don't have great content, I'm using that term flippantly, but if you don't have that content that's needed, you might not rank even with the other two. So it is, it's very possible to be an SEO and say, look, I am a technical SEO. I'm going to go and find a website that's got 5 million pages that I can go and solve some deep technical problems of. Or you could work for a brand that has a 10-page website. Technical isn't going to do an awful lot. you know, I mean, actually, I don't really know what an SEO would do on a 10-page website for a full-time gig, but you know, it would probably be off-page. It would probably be kind of content strategy and that side of things. So it's you can very much look and focus on an area that you want to focus on that is the right one, rather than, as you said, the arbitrary agency play that was just SEO is 10 blogs, some optimized titles, and it will work. Because it used to, probably more than 10 blogs to be frank, but 50, 20, whatever it was.
My take on agencies, I want to say it's almost like a love-hate relationship with agencies, because at the end of, I have experience client side and agency side, and I find that agencies, they pretty much drive the industry, right? But I think that the downside of agency, especially back in the day, is the sales aspect of SEO. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of agency carrying out SEO is to sell the service or products, or product. And I think that leads to a lot of issues for clients. So, for example, back in the day, you had link building, which was pretty much the bread and butter for every agency out there, right? So that's all they sold, link building. And as a result of that, we got Penguin. Nowadays, we have a lot of agencies who are focusing on technical SEO, which is great because it's the foundation, right? But I find that regardless of whether a site needs technical SEO primarily, they still service the site with a technical SEO. And from an agency staff point of view, that could lead to a lot of problems with the workforce. So if a site doesn't need technical SEO, but the agency services clients with technical SEO, they still have to service technical SEO. So it's a conundrum. What do they do? How do you reckon with that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. So I think, so the kind of the words that can make or break an agency for me is the word scale, because of what it kind of implies. And I think, you know, if we think the last generation of agencies, kind of pre-Penguin, it was all about scale. It was, you know, the gold rush, and it was let's stack them high and sell them cheap. So SEO sales, like the first time that SEO agencies ever had a sales function, it was in that era. You know, SEO just started to become established. Teach them what SEO is, explain why ranking highly in Google is worth your while, and then say, and we'll push this magical button and you will appear at the top of search. Just don't ask why. Don't ask too many questions. Broadly, not saying it was the right way, but that was kind of how it happened.
Yeah.
And it was very much a kind of a factory approach. And it was just, you know, and that, let's be frank, that while it worked for the clients, it worked well. But for most people involved in the process, those delivering it, doing it, the clients themselves, and the broader web at large, I don't think anyone really benefited from that. Like, websites ranked that, frankly, shouldn't have. The teams delivering it didn't learn that they learned how to do a job, but it wasn't fundamentally how to add value. And clients and businesses got really, really used to a source of traffic and revenue that was, well, transient. It disappeared. If that was the only thing going for you, then, as you said, Penguined it. You know, if you survived Panda, you got smashed by Penguin. And it was, and that was very much the nature of it. And then obviously that rebirth or that remerging, people trying to, you know, go back, soul searching. Why do I do SEO? What can we sell? What scales as well? A lot of those hang-ups are still there. Sales teams are still used to selling in that way. Clients, a lot are still used to buying SEO in that way. Like a lot of expectations and knowledge has realigned, but not enough. And a good agency is one that can take more of a consultative approach and say, well, this is what we sell and this is what you need. And then there's that acceptance that sometimes those won't align. And in those instances, the sale doesn't happen. The agencies that are still, unfortunately, making life difficult for clients and broadly a lot of the rest of the industry are, oh, you need SEO. Well, this is the type of SEO we sell. We're a good agency, therefore you need our service. But that mismatch, that disjunct, puts a lot of strain on the team that delivers it, but fundamentally the client receiving that service will never get what they need, and their trust will degrade. And again, SEO agency just out to, take my money and not deliver. And I think there are some fantastic agencies and working more with larger brands now and sort of the in-house teams. SEOs have a really pivotal role in delivery, in doing things, in making it happen, and they can kind of action things and give a sense of direction that the teams themselves won't often have. But if all they want to do, or all of their position to do, is the stuff that isn't going to benefit, or they're churning out technical audits that are unimplementable because they've not taken the time to understand, well, where are these recommendations going, who's picking them up, how are they going to do it, then that's where it is. And then the main reason the agency gets employed is because if results aren't very good, you can blame it on the agency, kick them out and bring in a new one. But that doesn't help anyone either. To
No.
be totally honest, it's just a good chucking someone under the bus just to kind of like, oh, that didn't work. New agency. But again, no one wins.
What would you say to a client who wants to hire an agency, but doesn't necessarily want to spend the time understanding SEO? So they pretty much want the agency to take care of their problems for them.
That's a really good one, because they're the people that need an agency the most they need expertise and direction the most.
Yeah.
And it's finding that trustworthy point. Now, I've spent the majority of my career in agencies and taken a lot of pride in what I do. So there are some really good people that can provide that support and guidance. But there's a lot of trust and there's a lot of due diligence that is needed, because for every agency that will say, no, we will actually turn a client down, or we will tell them, we'll push back gently on what they're asking for, and we'll direct them. For every one of those that will, there's 5 to 10 that literally won't. They'll just say, well, you can trust us, here's our shelf of awards, and whatever we lay out is going to be right. Right. And I would say for a client that doesn't know, I think they have to do that, a little bit of that research, even if they need to speak with the team and develop trust in them. And by team, I don't just mean the business devs. I mean the actual kind of delivery team or senior team that's responsible for delivery. So if you're not in the position to understand enough about what the agency does, at least kind of work out, do I trust these people and their knowledge and expertise beyond sales? Again, that's not me throwing shade at sales, but a salesman's job or a sales team's job is to develop that trust and kind of build that relationship. So if they're doing their job well, they will have done that. But you aren't, the salesperson isn't going to be your monthly contact, isn't going to be the person that's delivering. You need to work out if they understand. Agencies need to do better at that as well, to be frank.
Yeah. So let's say an SEO, in-house SEO. No, sorry, correction. Let's say a marketing manager in-house. They hire an SEO, or they hire an agency to do their SEO. They then get their recommendations, and it's at this point that they realize, oh shit, we actually have to implement this. What would you say?
Oh God, yeah.
What would you say to them?
Yeah.
Because implementation, that's everything, right? If you're not able to implement, you're not able to see results. You're not able to grow your SEO.
It's academic then, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, strategy, recommendations, analysis, all of that is great, important, essential. But implementation is everything. So how would you suggest an in-house team go about implementing their recommendations?
So, yeah, this is an interesting one, because I think if that's the point in the process where they're like, oh wait, we've got the audit and we still have, that's where the work starts. Then that's obviously a massive positioning and fundamentally sales problem. And at that point, it's really challenging. I mean, it shouldn't be. It's kind of a naive assumption on everyone's part that if those are misaligned, but if you've got to deal with that, that's the hand you're dealt. Then it's kind of then your job to really work out, well, what are your systems? What is your content management system? Who are the people that are doing it? And kind of understanding where the points of friction along that process are, but really understanding it. Like, if it's wrong, work out, well, can we make it better or more streamlined, or where can, so an agency can scale. That's, I mean, I say I hate the word scale, but broadly the agency's job is to bend and flex with the client's requirements. That's what a good agency should be able to do. So if you work out that the pain point, the blocker to all your implementation is, is 1 or 2 points in the process, we'll make suggestions. How can we sort of facilitate that? That's the usual point. But fundamentally, if it's, well, actually, I've got all of your recommendations, that's going to take, I don't know, 3 weeks of development time to implement. We don't have that. Then it's that prioritization. So actually speaking with that dev team, understanding what is the effort for implementation, and then going away and working out, well, this is the effort. What do we perceive the impact for this to be? Therefore, what are the top 3-5 things that have to get implemented? And then how do we educate that team to implement that in the most efficient way possible? Not just kind of a loose set of recs, chuck them at them, and then you have to go back and refine and reiterate on the fix 5 or 6 times, because again, that doesn't help anybody. So it's understanding that what's your resource need, and also just get better at building the biz case for doing the work, which is hard. No SEO likes that question. It's like, so how much traffic am I going to get? I'm going to fix this hreflang. What traffic am I going to get? It's like, well, actually, that's just broken, so that's table stakes. You won't get a lot of glory for fixing that, but it will stop you in the future, and it's just understanding the dynamics of things. But if all else fails, I always fall back on like a proof of concept or a pilot in that sense. So, okay, well, you might not prescribe to this whole program of stuff that we're going to give you, but this is the one that I think we can implement the quickest. That's the lightest touch on your part. I'm going to measure every part of this that I can, and then tell you a really compelling story afterwards to unlock more time and budget later. That's the best way. I mean, saying that's not easy, because again, every one of these steps, especially if you're talking about you being in agency, you're deviating from a already predefined process. And every time you deviate from an agency process, you're relying on the skill of that individual member of the team, not the structure. And that's what the opportunity for agencies is: teach principles, not processes, and then your team kind of empowered to be more consultative. But I'm talking about this kind of like idealistic halcyon days of, a team of, really skilled, knowledgeable consultants, which obviously most agencies can't be, because that's not what they are. But it's that's what I want to see, because I think that would be where we join everything up and it works well.
Now, you mentioned educational process there, and it's always difficult for SEOs to show clients, okay, we want revenue. We want to help you guys with revenue, but we have to start with crawlability. With the site being crawlable, discoverable. Yes. And I saw your post on, I think it was Twitter or LinkedIn, one of them, around the metric chain, where you link.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But tell us some more about that, because I found that to be fascinating.
Yeah. So the where that came about was essentially stakeholders in a project are only really interested at what am I getting back? Like, okay, this is all really interesting, but how much money am I going to make, or how successful are we going to be? And that's fine, and that's understandable. But as you've just pointed out, this is a journey, right? Like, how much money am I going to make? Well, nothing until Google's crawling your website. And then it's like, well, how can you tell the story between a technical sort of fundamental part that's really uninteresting to a board, which is how crawlable is my website? How do we relate that to revenue? And it's the chain, the way that I've kind of factored that. I've just taken a lot of these metrics that are just metrics that all SEOs will use and be conscious of, but align it in the sense of, is this, the leftermost end of the spectrum is our technical metrics, and our rightmost is revenue or leads. And it's and broadly what it's saying is that, this technical on crawl stats, what's my crawl rate? Or how often are my pages being visited by Googlebot, or anything kind of super technical. That does not directly correlate into revenue, but this is where the narrative comes in. If Google isn't crawling my pages frequently enough, I'm not going to be making revenue, because they're not going to be displayed in search results. And we tell that story by we say, well, how many impressions are they getting in Google Search Console. Well, an impression is good. An impression isn't a click, but you can't have clicks if you don't have impressions. So impressions will lead clicks, and clicks will lead visits, and visits will lead conversions, which lead revenue. And it's taking someone along that process and just helping them understand the relationship between each stage. And more for the consultant or whoever's delivering the report is, well, who am I talking to, and what part of this chain do they need to be exposed to fundamentally? If it's C-suite and you're talking about a year-end report, well, broadly, what's my return on investment? So what's my revenue that Organic Sources has generated? And then details of, well, they'll always say, well, what have you done to get there? So it's, okay, well, what do I need to show them out of that mix? What do I need to lift out of some of those metrics just to tell that story? You know, we saw that your pages weren't getting crawled. We made them crawlable. Skip to the end, generates more revenue. And it's and it's kind of being very selective and very intentional about the metrics you display. And this is me talking to a 5 years younger version of myself. I'm really interested in this stuff. Well, we both are. This is what we do, right?
Yeah.
Nobody else really is, like, broadly. Like, SEOs might be, but in the wider world, no one really cares. And as excited as you are about all of this stuff and happy as you are with it, get to the point, like, in the nicest possible sense. And again, I'm telling myself this because I've had that feedback before, and it's kind of like, what do we need for that? But the chain just helps people understand that progress along it. And more to the point, you get midway through, say you're at a quarterly review and you haven't seen an uptick in revenue yet because, I don't know, your changes got implemented 6 weeks late. But you can show that Google has started crawling the site more and that impressions have started to creep up. Well, they're leading indicators. They might not be success, but they're signs that it is working. And they're really, really important, that if you don't have tangible results yet, you've got to be flying the flag for these leading indicators that are starting to show. Because if you're not telling the story that success is coming, everyone's going to be like, well, it's not working.
Yeah.
Which, well, it isn't yet, but it doesn't work until it starts working. Until that keyword is breached top half of page 1, you don't really have something to write home about. So it's just kind of understanding, firstly, that all of these metrics interconnect, that most people don't care about most of them, but this is a narrative, that you're framing. It's not it's not a science paper. It's what's important to that person and how do you tell them about it? So that's what I'm kind of hoping for. I mean, I tend to write posts like that aimed at me. Like, what did I need? What advice did I need 5-6 years ago? Well, to be fair, what could I sometimes do with refreshing myself with even now? But
I think it's a brilliant value to the industry because it allows us SEOs to tell the story and not be tell it in an interesting way. Because when you show this link from crawlability all the way to revenue, all of a sudden, non-SEOs, people in C-suite, they get it. They see it, and it's a fantastic metric that you put together, or chain of metrics that you've put together. I'll definitely link it in the post for everyone to have a look at it because I think it allows non-SEOs to understand SEO without having to face the daunting aspect of having to know SEO or learn SEO. I think that's a major barrier for non-SEOs because in my experience, from their point of view, they see SEO as like it's like a dark art sort of thing. And they hire SEOs to take care of that so that they don't have to. But we SEOs know SEO doesn't quite work like that. You might invest in it, but you still have the arduous task of managing it, which involves non-SEOs. You can't. You can have SEO work on best practices, audits, recommendations, strategy, but it takes more than SEOs to make SEO a success. You need the element of non-SEOs. You need to work with developers. I have developers throughout my career that I've worked with, and there's always pushback from developers. And I say developers specifically because they're unique, like SEOs are, in that SEOs, if we're speaking with copywriters, we can tell them what we need with words, and they will be able to get it. Developers are slightly different. They need to see data. They need something like this chain metric that you've put together to really get it. If they see data or if they see spreadsheets of information, that's when they're able to link things. Just speaking words to them it doesn't cut it like us speaking with content writers.
It's always a tricky one. I find most developers need to understand, so the people I really enjoy working with the most are like the ones that well, tell me why.
Yeah.
Help. Like, not everyone wants to know why, but I think developers out of everyone I work with want to know why, because if you're a developer or you're an engineer, your job is to make something work. So they're kind of understanding the fundamentals. I need to know why this works. I need to know how to make it better. And if you're giving them recommendations that feel counterintuitive, or your explanation in why doesn't stack up, then that's when you're going to, that's when you most often get pushback. I mean, other times are when developers feel under pressure, like they're feeling attacked, or they broadly don't have time to fix your thing. They're like, well, how do I convince someone else that I don't need to fix this thing? Oh, it's a non-issue, or Google doesn't need redirects anymore, or all of this. Or I've heard someone else talk about we need a hidden H1, or this is where kind of a lot of it is. So I think delivering the principles around the fix, then showing what's broken, will usually then show, okay, well, and how do we make it right? And that's when link to documentation, show example of code. That is the best way. The key one, and the SEO industry has finally really, I think, embraced this, or started to embrace it over the last couple of years, is actually like SEOs working in or with engineering teams are the most effective, because everyone understands each other. You're not knocking developers around a room for doing a bad job. They're not getting annoyed at you, and you're building that rapport and kind of having that common goal. The other thing is I've worked, a couple of the agencies I've worked in have developed and built their own websites. Most agencies, when they say we're building a website, it's definitely going to work for SEO. But they haven't charged for, and the client isn't paying for that to be SEO friendly, compliant, whatever the term we want to use. So it isn't part of their job. Like, before you're about to launch, redoing the semantic heading structure because they're all out of whack, or realizing that React framework hasn't been implemented correctly. Like, it literally makes no odds to them, and actually them fixing it is then eroding their margin. Now, of course, the client's going to be like, but that has to work, right? And again, it's that whole mismatch. You haven't come together right at the start and said, one of the goals of this build is we're not going to lose traffic because we're going to do things in best practice with search engine in mind. And I think the closer aligned everyone is, and they understand what each other's goals and targets are, you will have to make some compromises, but that's fine. It doesn't have to be perfect. You could also be that really dogmatic SEO that sort of gets really grumpy because all of his recommendations aren't implemented. But actually, what works is what's implemented. So get the key stuff done and live and ship it. Take everyone on that journey with you.
Absolutely. Now, a while ago, SEO as a line item for clients used to be sold pretty much just as SEO. In fact, it used to be sold as a bolt-on. So developers will will build a website and they add in there a line item saying SEO, and it's literally just SEO as one line item. Nowadays, you have SEO itemized, very detailed out as far as a sales point of view. Do you think it's better to have SEO open as SEO, or to be quite specific with what a client is getting? They're getting technical SEO on page or etc.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't think I've got a compelling answer either way on this one. I think because I kind of flip-flop depending on... So on one side, SEO is fluid, and what I need to do on any given month may be different because, especially if you have a slightly more consultative engagement, or say you're on a retainer but the client's going for a rebuild. A rebuild doesn't take place in a predictable fashion, almost never goes to schedule. So your delivery month by month will be lumpy. So it's kind of like, in one breath, it's like, well, actually, you just need to buy a block of time and we will use that time to do what we need to. And most people selling SEO would love that because that's easiest. As long as you're setting expectations and you're saying we don't think we're going to have enough time, we need to pivot or we need to cut back or whatever, then that's fine. On the other hand, would I trust all agencies in the industry to do that after some of the stuff that I've seen? No, like best will in the world. I think that the itemize this for me is a reaction to being badly sold and badly managed in the past. So we've kind of done it to ourselves collectively. So what are you going to do? Well, I can't tell you exactly, but this is indicative of what we're going to do. This is the split of time. I think the ones that don't work, so going back to the link building example, well, how many links are we going to get? 10, 20, 30? It's like, well, it's hard to say. We'll do 3 pieces of content, and those pieces of content we would look to generate coverage around. And those who say demand that link count are asking for trouble, because frankly, if I didn't want to do a good job, I could go and deliver the exact link count really easily, really cheaply. It wouldn't have any value whatsoever. And this is that balancing act, and you need a target. That's absolutely fine. What's our objective? But having a fixed amount and tying that to like your actual terms of delivery and or your whatever you've sold is kind of folly. I've seen 1 or 2 agencies sort of commit themselves to that. So it's like, if we don't hit that deliverable, you get the rest for free. And commercially for them, if they can make that work, okay. If you can make it work and you can maintain quality, then do that. But I don't think that's really benefits anyone, to be frank. It's someone in that process gets squeezed out. It's probably the poor person doing the outreach who's working 15 days in those situations. So, but I don't know. I think there's a balancing act, isn't there? And I think this comes back to that trust point. Like, if you've built that trust at the start, you can that will filter through to that commercial agreement. I mean, if you're in a large organisation and there's a procurement team, then obviously your relationship doesn't matter to them. They want it down in writing. But at that point, they usually go, well, we'll do time and materials. You have X hours a month, and that's what you're doing. Or here's your set deliverables. What's your project price? And I think if it's delivered as a project rather than a retainer, then I think you've probably got a bit more onus to deliver something tangible. But results are less often in that, because the project ends when the project ends. Results will come. When they come. So it's a tricky one. It's a good question. I feel like I haven't really answered it.
No. It's going. Speaking your view is definitely is insightful, because it really depends on the situation. Because sometimes working on a per project basis is better for a client. I think all agencies will pretty much prefer to be on a retainer. But
that's the model.
That's the model. But I personally think sometimes it's actually better for an agency to be on a per project basis. The only issue with that is, as a consultant, when the project is coming to an end, there's this panic, like, oh, we need to fill up this time.
What's the next one?
Yeah, I've been spending 30 hours a week. Now it's coming to an end. That's panic right there. So. It's finding that balance and what works better for the everyone involved, the client, the agency, and the people actually doing the work. Now, you do a lot of training to SEOs and also non-SEOs as well, right?
Yeah.
What level of knowledge would you say a non-SEO needs to have? Let's say someone from a marketing director upwards, they value SEO, they've invested in SEO, so they're completely committed to it, but they do not want to, they find it slightly daunting because they don't want to spend their time learning SEO, but they are aware that they need a certain level of awareness. How would you say they get that balance?
Yes, that's a good one. So at that level, the conversation I'd usually say is broader, more about landscapes and the big plays. So, I mean, the thing is, everyone that I teach SEO, the fundamentals are always do I have a website that can be crawled? Can this search engine find what it needs to? Do I have the content that represents what I want to be seen for? And then can Google find and verify my claims from other trusted sources? Mm-hmm. And I think you kind of got to teach that pretty much universally, because then if you're going to report back any kind of problem, you can relate it to one of those core principles. So you only really need to tell that person 3 things and say, look, is it a content problem? Is it a technical problem? Or is it a link reputational problem? Broad. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, I'm painting really, really broad strokes here, but you can usually relate the things back to that. I think when it's direct level, I think the key one then is to say, well, what's your market? How visible are these people? How visible are you, your brand, in your search universe, if you want to call it that? And how visible are everybody else? And then it's a case of talking about deficits or what's missing. So is the deficit the amount of content? Is the deficit the amount of links? Is it the technical strength? And I usually find in those situations, you kind of help them to see, firstly, the bigger picture, and then kind of show really kind of poignant examples of, and this is the content that's working super well in this. They have 40 pieces of that. If you want to do SEO that outranks that, you need to be doing 50 pieces of that, and they need to be better. But this is the potential search that could be sought after. And I think that's the story and the level of SEO that I usually kind of talk about that. So none of it's really in the reads, but it is painting these really kind of clear causal relationships. If you do lots of great content, it gets indexed and other people reference and link to it, it will succeed and get traffic. Or the inverse of that is, if you want to cut that entire section of content on the website, that's fine, it's your decision, but you will be losing X thousand clicks and X thousand revenue, whatever that looks like. And I think that's the way we do it there. I mean, a lot of the training I also do sort of at that level is about like what staff do I need and how are we kind of positioning it? So actually, what does that skills makeup look like? And that's a really interesting one as well, because the biggest question that I get asked is, do I need a specialist? Like, really? Like, all of these people sound really expensive and hard to come by, and I'm not sure I want to deal with that. And the kind of the argument, the response to that is, well, what do you want to get from it? Like, depends on the business and what your model is, but if you want to do really well at this and stay ahead, and you have lots of big complicated websites, then you kind of can't avoid it. If SEO is but a small part of your overarching strategy, then maybe you can do it with freelance or contracts just to fill those gaps when they're needed. Or if you just need an agency to power your content strategy, then that's kind of the point. But yeah, I don't find many directors who really want to know enough how to do it themselves. I think the other thing they also like is the ability to call out BS. Yeah. So it's kind of like, just teach them enough to understand these are the fundamentals, and if you're hearing these messages, then that doesn't sound good. Guaranteed results, it'll be there in 2 weeks. Or no, of course, we're going to buy those blogs, and of course it's going to work. It doesn't matter if you don't like the blogs. Google likes the blogs. It's those, just sort of teaching them some of those like SEO tropes and that snake oil salesmanship that, to be fair, people are getting better at. I think the overall level of knowledge in the industry is a lot better. And I think the other thing is, a lot of the marketing directors that I'm speaking to, a lot of them actually have SEO backgrounds. Yeah. I was working with one not so long ago but when they're like 10 years ago, they were delivering the SEO strategies, and you come in and you hit those right notes. They're like, yes, do it. I don't need to know any more, but show me the numbers. So they're the oddity. They don't need a lot of explanation, but when you're reporting, they're the ones that are going to be like magnifying glass into interrogating that just because. So, which there is some good elements and some less good elements about that. But, having members of the board who have done SEO is kind of cool. It's kind of liberating, actually. We're seeing it more and more.
I want to see more of it. Yeah, definitely. I think it's
absolutely.
We're now in the C-suite, SEO as a community, and thank God for that.
Absolutely. But I think it's needed, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. You hire SEOs, right? You've been hiring SEOs for a while. Have you seen a difference in perhaps character, maybe personality between millennials to Gen Z who are now in the workforce?
Interesting. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I'm pretty square in the millennial camp, and so I kind of see. So all of the annoying tropes around millennials that really wound me up, I kind of seen in people that I've interviewed, and kind of like, I kind of get that part of it.
Yeah.
I think the biggest difference that I've had is seeing people that have had more preference in like the brands they work with or the purpose of what they're doing. And I've seen a lot more of that. So it's like, but what I'm doing has got to make a difference, right? Or I've got to appreciate and align with my client's values, rather than the attitude always used to be, look, if you want to get paid, that person's going to pay you. You've got to do the job, right? I think the power of conviction is slightly more. Or I've certainly seen that a lot more. I think also there's the onus on just balance in general and wanting to be a part of something and but keep themselves. I think that's certainly a new one. But I've also found there's a big shift in more people asking questions. And I mean that in a great way, like in the sense of like interviewees coming to me and asking me questions, like, and actually, to be honest, they're often usually the better ones, because if someone's like, "Well, tell me more about what you're trying to do, or how you achieve this," and it's obviously you've got to ask it in the right way, but that's if someone's interested enough to have those questions and speaking out, I think they're usually a good candidate just for that kind of proactivity. Beyond that, I don't know. I think there's a lot of variation in between. Like I still interview people that just sort of sit quietly and don't do anything. They just sort of like they just answer the questions.
Yeah,
can't make a conversation, and especially like with the last couple of years, kind of going remote and doing more stuff via video conferencing. It's kind of like it's really hard to get stuff out of them in those situations. It's like how do I judge you when I can't? I know, so it's forcing employers to kind of engage with people in a different way. It's not just a conversation and doodling on the back of a CV. It's how else do you gauge what someone's aptitude is? But I think that's a broader industry problem.
it's the reason I ask it is because I have an inkling. I don't have any data to back this up, but I think a shift in the personalities with younger millennials. I'm an elder millennial. I think younger millennials and also Gen Zers, they tend to almost view their work as something that fits within their lifestyle rather than working and then having a lifestyle almost outside of work. And I think it's this influencer mentality that's really shifting the way younger millennials and Gen Zers think about work, because nowadays they expect to be able to work from home. It's an expectation. Whereas when I was coming up, that wasn't even an option.
wasn't a thing back, definitely.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's right. I was just going to say, I think part of it might also be where we are in the sort of industry maturity and where we are for skills. So we're in a really fortunate position, right, where our skill set is, I'd say, finally appreciated for what it is. But to the point now where it's maybe overappreciated. So I think that actually I don't want to say arrogance, but almost it is kind of that arrogance or forthrightness to say, well, this candidate that's come forward is definitely going to be speaking to 4 other agencies and is definitely going to be fishing for the best offer. And I don't blame them. There's no problem in that. But your mindset when you come into an interview, when you know that you're going to get a job, it's just which one, and do I get enough perks? Have I got the one with unlimited holiday or the beanbag? Do you know what I mean? It's whereas when I graduated, finished my master's, changed direction, career entirely, and was constantly getting told, no, you're overqualified or you don't have enough experience or one of the two of that. Like I was super just keen to get any job, just to kind of get some experience under my belt and do that. And that there's a mentality shift there. And I wonder whether So at the moment, people are getting over employed or over promoted and over salaried. And I'm not saying that they're not worth it, but there aren't enough people. That's what happens. That's the kind of the economics of it. But I'm seeing more and more people getting promoted too fast, hating it. Their own mental health is suffering, which again is much more of a focus of generations now, and they're tumbling back down a bit, or they're taking a knock, or they have, and that doesn't benefit anyone. Doesn't benefit them. It doesn't benefit the people that have employed them. And with the recession and economic downturn, I think the mentality towards these jobs and the approach will change. I still think digital will be slightly better insulated than others, but only slightly. I think anyone working with SMEs will probably find it difficult over the next couple of years because budgets will get cut back as consumers stop spending. That's pretty much what happens. But I think that might have more of a profound impact in people's expectations in interviews than maybe whether they're millennial or Gen Z. I think it's I think we're riding the crest of a wave now. I guess we kind of rose up through the industry at the right time to that end.
Yeah,
a bit of a tricky start, right? But
I think things are changing very, very quickly, and in the next 5-10 years, I'm not sure what will happen, but I think there'll be massive changes industry-wide. One thing I think for sure is that SEOs who are very keen on SEO, and it takes a certain mentality, right? It takes that yes. want or need to want to improve on something. And I find that this is with every SEO who's really interested in SEO, that really loves it. They have a need to want to improve upon something. And because there are different elements of SEO, different elements of the industry, it stimulates them in an exciting way that wants them to continue to do SEO. What's your take on that?
So I always kind of think, maybe less so now, but I always kind of affectionately thought of people that got into SEO as the misfits. So, the people because I mean, but when as a profession, it didn't really exist. It wasn't really that well respected. Who goes into that? Well, so for me personally, I just played in the margins, like between web and marketing. And I liked, like as you said, like the fixing something, but I like seeing things that other people hadn't seen and then working out how to kind of get in that. And and a lot of the other SEOs that I've worked with, employed, and just sort of worked alongside, they have a similar. It's just that unconventional sort of element to things, And I'm not sure why. I do agree with you in that sense of it's people wanting to improve something, wanting to optimize it, believing it can get better. I think it's that problem solving mentality. It's like, I've just got to solve that problem. Like, let me fix that, and that's also can be a weakness, because actually sometimes solving that problem to 100% isn't that important, or actually isn't that beneficial. It only needs to be 40% better or 20%. And I've definitely worked with and mentored actually a lot of SEOs that are like, but it's not where it could be. It's like, yes, but if you spend 2 more days on that, will it benefit? It's like, well, no, it's not what's being asked for. It's like, then stop, put it down, walk away from it.
Definitely.
But the best SEO is just care.
Yeah, definitely needs to have that commercial mindset whilst doing SEO. Otherwise, it's just SEO for SEO reasons, and that's not very
which is just
profitable.
Vanity. It's some weird vanity.
Exactly.
Go and be an affiliate in that sense,
Yeah. Let's switch gears to Twitter real quick.
Sure.
Do you think Twitter will ever go away?
Oh, no, I don't think it will.
Because
I think culturally it's so ingrained. It's such a thing. I think even Musk's best intentions to not destroy, he doesn't want to destroy it, but I think it will endure. I mean, I'm less happy with it now than I was, and I've been growing unhappy with it for the last 2 years. But I think as a thing, it's just too important. Now it's just too culturally significant, and I'd say that for almost any social network. I think Twitter is probably the most unique in that. So Facebook has chased Instagram and others, and then eventually just tried buying them. Obviously, Meta then bought all of them. Insta's tried chasing and keeping, and reasonably successfully with TikTok, and obviously YouTube's been able to kind of move into that. And Twitter's been one of the few that its method of social hasn't. No one else has really tried taking a slice out of. And it's not that I think Twitter's the most successful. I mean, clearly it isn't in so many ways, but the people that like it can't get that experience from anywhere else, really. Even Mastodon and some of the others that are coming up through the ranks, they're all slightly different. And I don't think that LinkedIn is a replacement for Twitter. I've heard a lot of people saying that, and I feel quite strongly that it's not.
Yeah.
In good and bad ways.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's something that I'm keeping my eye on because it will indirectly affect search, of course, because Twitter is very much ingrained within search. And the whole idea of having or paying for verification, the blue check mark, how is that going? I'm wondering, how is that going to impact search? Does it mean credibility will be placed or weighted with those who have a blue check mark, but then they're paying for it? And if you're paying for it, surely I can create 5 profiles and pay for all 5. You know, it's indirectly has an impact on search, and I'm wondering what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think if blue check equals trust, I think if that relationship has got to be stabilized, I think if we all agree that that's true, if we all agree, I mean, if Google agrees that that's true, or Twitter, or whoever can be influenced by that verified notifications or those verified tweets kind of column, we have to agree that. If we agree that blue equals better, then I think it will be incredibly useful and actually could be beneficial. It could remove a lot of noise. The issue I have, and I don't know how reconcilable this is pay to play or pay to win kind of ways of doing this is, as you said, whoever's got the money to buy it, I mean, you could level this at any paid advertising, so it's not a new phenomenon in marketing. But the paying for it bit isn't as much my problem. It's actually how easy is it to defraud, to imitate, to kind of lie. And that blue check mark gives you power that you shouldn't have and isn't right to. And obviously we've had teething troubles, so many fraudulent accounts, parody accounts, all of this, that and the other, and I kind of understand that. But if Twitter can at least make sure that the people who are verified are that person or that company and they have the right to be that, then I think that content will be more valuable in the web ecosystem. I don't know whether I think it should be, but I think that will give it some inherent issues. But just because someone's paid to be blue, does that mean their tweets are better? I think that's a very risky assumption, and I'll be really super interested to see what Google does with that. Do they notice?
It'll be interesting to see their response on this, because it's a big. I think it can be a big issue from a credibility point of view.
Yeah, I don't think that Google would necessarily be able to start. So, for example, like tweets in search results, like we are only going to show blue or verified tweets in search or bits like that. I think that would put Google in a really tricky situation, because obviously you wouldn't really want to seek to enable someone else's commercial model in that. But Google's relationship with Twitter and what it does and doesn't show in search results has been quite unstable and unpredictable. So in some respects, maybe if they did find a better way to work it out, it could be useful. If Musk is right and Twitter is the best source for live news, then Google has to get on that, because it needs to be reflecting that, because that's the better search. But then it's putting it straight into a competitor. So it's such a tangled web, and the more pervasive and kind of the tendrils of Google start wrapping themselves around everything else, it opens a lot more of these really awkward questions. And I wonder how many commercial deals there are to be done. Would that be a nice revenue stream for Twitter to, possibly get better integration with Google in other more intrinsic ways?
I hadn't actually thought about that. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's the next year or so is going to be Very interesting from a search point of view. For an SEO or someone who's interested in SEO, lastly,
Yeah.
how would you recommend they get into SEO and become a professional?
Yeah. Okay. So virtually everything you need to become an SEO, you could probably Google and find, and is out there. So if somebody is determined, driven, then anyone just get started. Broadly, I mean, and I say that, and I genuinely mean that, because I think what the SEO industry needs is more proactive, passionate people learning the craft. I think that's for sure. That makes everyone's life better. The challenges are that, well, there's a couple of things. Firstly, when you're taking all of the knowledge that's out there, it's like some stuff is going to be out of date, some stuff might be untrustworthy, some stuff might be flat out wrong. And when you're just starting, how do you know what is and isn't right? And that's hard. So I would say, beyond finding courses and learning and going down that road, I'd actually say do it yourself. Like, get a website. It's a piece of content that I'm sort of slowly working on in the background. Is like, there are web hosting companies, there are free or next to free hosting for WordPress or others, that just that experience of starting up a website and just testing it out, like put some pages on there, optimize some content, get that thrill of seeing clicks coming in Search Console and ranking for queries because of something that you've done intentionally. And I think the sooner you can feel that and be like, I made this change and it worked, that's when you'll know if it's for you. The other side is, and the big rite of passage for SEO is, why is my traffic dropped? That shouldn't have dropped. And it's that kind of feeling of, has there been an update? And for me, those two things you've got to experience yourself to really start learning and understanding. Firstly, how do you do it, but also the emotion in doing it. And it just takes away from the academic side of, well, this is it in theory, or these are these three pillars, blah blah blah. But actually, like, what do I need to make it happen? And I've seen that so many people that do like a 1-day training, or they'll attend a webinar, or they'll do all of this stuff, and the expectation that, okay, well, it's done then. It's like, well, it's not. It's like, if you haven't gone away and made that stuff live and tested it as soon as possible, then it isn't going to add any value. It's not going to cement itself. I was recently speaking to a few people who haven't got any SEO experience, but they really want to get into the industry, and they're like, how? All anyone's ever telling me is that I don't have any experience and they won't give me a job. And I said, well, build that website.
Yeah.
If you can go into an agency and say, well, I've built a website to test it out, and I've read this blog, and I've done this, and I've done that. If I was employing that person or interviewing them, I'd be like, do we have a space for a junior? Like, we need that person, because they're doing it because they want to. And that's massive. And I think that's so much easier than people think it is. And it's a mindset thing. It's not a skills thing. Like, you don't have to be a web these days. Like, WordPress, and then off the shelf things like Wix and others. Anyone can go and start being an SEO tomorrow from a learning point of view. And the only thing that's going to stop you is you. But for anyone who has got a year, 2, 3 year, 4 years worth of experience, any agency and most large brands in the country are probably looking for you. So it's kind of like that skills demand is there, that shortage of people is there, and you can go and start learning it tomorrow relatively inexpensively. It's the differentiator is, how much do you want to invest in yourself?
Totally
and
agree.
That's what I'd say. Invest in yourself. It's worth it.
Yeah. Chris, it's been brilliant speaking with you. Where can people find you online?
No, thank you for inviting me. So come back to Twitter, at Chris Green SEO. I am there. I haven't left it, although I have recently also sort of gone to Mastodon. So I'm kind of hedging my bets. But that's at Chris Green at mastodon.social. And then LinkedIn, I believe I'm also Chris Green SEO there as well. I should be. If I had any clue about marketing and branding, that's what I would have done. So yeah, I am. Chris Green SEO as well. Or chris-green.net, where my blog and other sort of muses are going. My
I'll
DMs
be sure
are
to
open.
have those. I'll be sure to have those links in the description. Brilliant.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Chris. Have a good day, and
Thank
we'll
you for
chat
having me.
soon. Cheers. Bye now.
Awesome. Thanks then. Bye.